Well, hey, and welcome to another episode of Evolving Perspectives. My name is Mattea Elise, and I am so excited about bringing you all yet another episode. This episode is going to be amazing per usual because I have such a sweet, amazing guest on today. I always like to start my podcast out with giving flowers. That is just my thing. That's my jam. I really believe in really celebrating what people are doing in their lives and how they're using their lives to impact other people and their community. And so today, I have an amazing woman on this podcast. She is someone who I had the privilege and honor in meeting a few years ago. And, she's small in stature, and when you first meet her, or when I first met her, I was kind of like, okay, she's kind of quiet, only to realize, no, sis got a lot to say. And I had to make sure that I brought her on the podcast because I have been so inspired by what she does, how she does it, just the way that she has a way with words, just the way that she's able to move throughout the media space. She is being so intentional about using her voice to impact the lives of others, not just in a public space, but also in private. I love the way that she has taken the knowledge that she has and is imparting that into others so that we can walk a more educated path on our financial journeys. I am so honored and privileged to bring you all to my platform and share this platform and this stage today with my girl Leandra. Hey girl, how you doing?
I am doing that was a heck of an intro. Mattea, it's a blessing. I'm so grateful to be on your podcast and congratulations on everything. I love what you're doing. The podcast, I watched a few of your podcast episodes. They've been amazing. So I am very
Oh,
congratulations. Yes.
thank you so much. So I get everybody's bio because I know most of the people that's been on my podcast, of course, but I've asked them to send me their bios because can't nobody tell your story like you can tell your story. You know what I mean? You can send somebody a little snapshot, a little synopsis of what you've done, the things you've experienced, and all the career and educational accolades. But it's something different and it hits different, like the people say, when you share your own story. So I want you to first let the people know who you are, the powerhouse that you are, and the things and where you are in your career, in your life right now. And then we're going to dive into this conversation today. So I'm going to let you take the stage. Go ahead, girl.
Perfect. Well, wow. I am currently a news reporter, fill-in anchor at the CBS News affiliate in Hampton Roads, Virginia. I've been at this station for 3 years now, so I'm celebrating like my 3-year work anniversary, I would say. Before I came here, I was a morning anchor at the CBS station in Charlottesville, Virginia. I was only there for a year. What an experience, right? What an experience. Before I did that, I did some behind the scenes stuff at MSNBC, Good Morning America. While I was there, that's when I was like, okay, Leandra, you really want to be on TV. So in our broadcast space, normally we go like to a smaller city, I would say, to get some on-camera reporting and anchoring done. So going from New York, doing this behind the scenes stuff, I had to move to like a smaller town, Charlottesville, Virginia, to be on camera. So I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. Um, Definitely different. It was definitely a different experience there.
I
Um,
bet.
Yes, yes. Well, let me take you all way back to the beginning. So, born and raised in Noonan, Georgia. I'm a Southern Belle by heart. I'm from the South, the dirty
Come
South.
on now.
Okay, period. Yes, ma'am. Right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So Noonan is about 35 minutes outside of Atlanta. Born and raised in Noonan. And Noonan is a small town, but every other weekend, I think I was in Atlanta, just hanging out or spending time with family. I was raised by my dad. My mom passed away when I was 2 years old. Unfortunately, she died in a car accident. All of us were in the car. We were kind of like on like a family vacation, but it was me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. We were all in the car. My mom was actually driving the car. My dad was in the passenger seat. Me and my sister were in the back seat. So this car, I don't remember this because again, I was like 2 years old. But as it's been told to me over the years, the car came on impact on my mom's side, the driver's side. she was the only one who died from the crash. I do vaguely remember, it's just like maybe a snippet of a memory. The next morning, I remember we were all in the hospital and we all had on like hospital gowns, but I didn't know exactly what was going on. And so after that happened, that changed everyone's lives. So I continued to live with my dad because we all lived together as a family. My mom, my dad, me, my sister. When my mom passed away at 2 years old, I continued to live with my dad. My sister, so me and my sister, we have the same mom, different dad. So my sister moved in with her dad. I would continue to live with my dad, but we saw each other, every weekend or every other weekend. So we grew up seeing each other a lot.
That was awesome.
You know what I mean? And I credit my dad to just a lot of my success. Raised me as a single father and played sports in high school. It was my dad made it mandatory for me to play a sport, basically just to keep me involved, keep me always, doing something and stuff. He's probably the reason I went to Hampton. He was the main push in me going to HU, I would say. Going to HU, that was probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made, and it was a blessing in disguise, I would say. So I had never been around so many Black people before I went to
That was
Hampton.
about to be my question, but go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
right. I'd never been around so many Black people. So Newnan, Georgia. So Newnan, it's some Black people in Newnan, but we are not the majority, right? So
Mm-hmm.
high school, like the big state schools, those are the schools that were praised. So like the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, those are two big name schools in Georgia. So of course, like every other high school student at my particular high school, I applied to the University of Georgia. We call it UGA. That was like the popular school to go to. It was kind of hard to get in, I would say, but it was such a blessing in disguise that I did not get into UGA. And I say that because had I not gone to Hampton, I don't think I would be where I am today and be as confident in my skin as a Black woman, because like again, I never grew up with a mom in the household. Of course, I have aunts and they played a pivotal role in me, my journey and stuff. But me as a Black woman going to an HBCU and being able to, I would say, thrive and be given opportunities at this HBCU, Hampton, they have one of the best, the greatest broadcast journalism programs in the country, especially if you're brown, Black person. And so just the opportunities I was given there, just literally a blessing. I credit Hampton to so much of my success. I know for a fact I wouldn't be here. I don't think I would be on air, and have this confidence has grown significantly. I wasn't always,
Yes.
so it's definitely, I'm a proud Hampton HU alumni. And actually, you know what? Going to Hampton, that was my first introduction to Virginia. I had never been to Virginia, but I knew Hampton, they had like one of the top journalism programs in the country. And so I love Virginia. I'm back, right? I've been back for like 3 years. When I saw that they had a position at the current news station that I'm at now, I quickly applied. I actually interned at the station back when I was in college. So I graduated from Hampton back in 2018. And so this was like back in like, I would say 2017, maybe 2018 is when I interned at the current station that I work at. So I was familiar with the station before
Oh yeah.
they remember my face, which was like so good. A lot of times, getting hired, it's more so who do you know more than what you know, I would say. Really
Mm-hmm.
different from like a business or nursing degree. Broadcast is just so different. It's more of like, I've had to just network, introduce myself to people, maintain relationships. That has been so pivotal in where I am today. So thank God, they remembered me from the internship and they said, oh, we remember her. Let's, interview her. And, it was up from the interview. I've grown tremendously within the last 3 years. I would say when I first started about 3 years ago, like I said, it took me a while to get to where I am today. I wasn't always this confident. And I even see it like when I go back and look at some of my earlier news stories, like, just very green, I would say, very sweet and adorable. But over the years, I've definitely had to become more assertive to,
Right.
yeah, I would say more assertive, more confident to kind of give off what I want to give when it comes to, doing TV stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, I absolutely love that. I also am a graduate, not of Hampton University, but of
Mhm.
Bennett College, which is also a HBCU. And I say the exact same thing. When I was going to college, I had an opportunity to go to a number of different schools, University of Maryland, all the different schools. I had a really good GPA, and I could have gone anywhere. And I end up going on a college tour and went through all the places and did all the interviews and all the things and ended up at Bennett College, a small, private, all-female college, which I had was not even on my radar. But hands down, I mean, I'm very thankful. I come from an amazing family, but hands down, that experience at that HBCU, baby, there
Right.
was
Like,
not a dollar sign
yes.
that I could associate with the confidence that I gained while I was there,
Mhm.
the sense of community, just the self-awareness, knowing who I was,
Right.
owning who I was, and making no apology. Before it was, I make no apologies. You learn that at a HBCU, period.
Absolutely. Hello.
It,
Hello.
it it just is like, no, you're supposed to be here and you're
Right.
supposed to be wherever, and you own that. Yes, you get to that interview and you get to that space and
That. Okay.
stand in that. You're supposed to be here.
Yes. And it just it
Exactly.
and you become great yourself, right? It's a beautiful.
Yes, you do. It is beautiful. What an amazing story. Oh my gosh. I had no clue. Of course, you had shared some of that with me before, but no clue about the details of that. And I wanted to add that because I was going to ask you that. Did you come from an area or a town or a county that was predominantly Black, or were you around a lot of Black people, or were you in a more diverse, and grew up in a more diverse environment? So I'm glad that you addressed that already. So that was really cool. I think that's always something that people it's just something that you just have to experience. I always tell people going to a HBC, it's nothing wrong with the PWI. I'm not against that at all. But what I will say is it is just one of those things when people say you just have to experience it. It's nothing that I could ever explain to you. I could never walk you through it. I can only try to shed light in your small, finite
Yeah.
mind and perspective on what it looks like to actually attend HBCU. And I am so, so thankful for you sharing that part of your journey with us. And so I do want to talk to you because one of the things that I think that you're seeing more now than ever is just this whole piece on making sure that representation is there. And being, of course, a young Black female in the media space, and not, this is not a podcast about throwing shade and all the,
Right.
latest topics. But I think that my question to you is how do you keep, and this sounds I'm saying it, but it sounds crazy as I'm saying it in my head, but I don't think it's crazy. But the question is, how do you keep your integrity in a world where it may not be integrity is really not a thing? And when I say that, of course, what happens behind the scenes. We've seen it play out in so many different spaces, whether it's on a news channel, because I know, like, even, one of the most popular ones is a whole scandal, and then everybody gets fired. And it's like, how do you keep, but at the same time, like you said, you need that networking. So how do you draw the line? I mean, there are people who will listen to this who are navigating new careers, and it's like, I need to rub necks with the right people, but at the same time, I need to stand my ground in what I believe in and my standards and just who I am and what I represent. So, how have you been able to navigate that way
Yeah.
as you've matriculated through your career?
Uh-huh. Everyone I've come in counter with has had good intentions. I haven't come in contact with someone who has bad intentions or bad motives. And, I hope it continues to stay that way. But I would say, as far as representation, I had like one of my mentees ask me, what happens when you get in a space where you have to assimilate? And they were basically asking, how do you assimilate? And so thankfully I work in an environment where I do not have to assimilate. I show up literally as I am, as a Black woman. My voice matters so much in these spaces, TV spaces, broadcast spaces, what news stories are going to be told. I'll give you an example. There was a story done about like natural hair, like braids, natural hair, and stuff like that. This was in the previous market that I was in, so Charlottesville. This is not in the current market, but I was the only Black woman in that room. No one else knew about natural hair or braids or anything, like, or Black woman's hair. And so it's like my perspective provided so much to these people that knew nothing about this topic or conversation.
Mm,
I would say, just being a Black woman, my voice matters so much. And it's a blessing and an honor to be in a space where I don't have to assimilate, where I can literally just
yes.
myself. I think that's why I really love doing broadcasts, doing journalism, just media in general, because I do not have to assimilate. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I mean, but you know what? I'm
Uh,
gonna tell you what
yes.
I get so tickled
Uh-huh.
because if anybody knows me, they know I love to laugh. Like that's just,
Okay, me too.
stuff just gets, I just get so tickled. And
Uh,
I remember one of our conversations, we were talking because I was asking you
right.
about how you find the people, like when something happens, like a
Oh,
fire.
right. Uh-huh.
I was so tickled because this is, I'm not gonna say inside joke because it's not an inside joke, but we were talking about, because I'm this person that I'll see stuff, but I think about the things that's connected to what the end project is or what the end result is. And so I'm always like so amused, for lack of better terms, with the fact that you see these news stories, and then when they start interviewing like the people in the neighborhood
Uh,
or the people that were around, and I'm
mhm.
saying to myself, where, did they ask you to be on TV? Did y'all find it?
My aunt asked the same thing. She says, "How did they pick out these people?" Oh, this is so funny. I was having a conversation with her like maybe like a few weeks ago, and she was like, "They sure did pick the most raunchiest per I don't know the word like ratchetest person to interview," and I just died of laughter. But honestly, a lot of stories, especially like when it's like breaking news or we go out to a neighborhood and something just popped off or happened. We try to find the person who we know is gonna spill something or just tell us some information. And then if they're willing to go on camera, that's even better. You know what I mean? Because that makes it easier to tell the story and it draws viewers in, right? Just we call it getting a good character for a story. So getting a good character for a story, that's someone who's just gonna just tell it like it is. They not go sugarcoat it, they go give it to you straight. Okay. Which I mean, and when I find those characters, they just make the entire story so much better. You know what I mean? I would prefer that someone who's go tell it like it is, who's not go sugarcoat it. Well, I saw them do this, or I saw the popo cut. You know what I mean?
Right,
Versus one
right,
who will be all put together and like an official who's just gonna, be very professional. Because
right.
when you're watching, so for instance, those news stories that you watch and you're like, well, what did they pick that person? Those are the news stories that stick with you most, right?
That's
They
true.
remember those stories. And as our job as reporters, that's my job for the viewer to remember the story, for me to reel you in. You know what I mean? So I may start off the story with like a quick sound bite from the character that I just interviewed with this neighbor. The neighbor saying something like, well, I saw that happen where the police did, you know what I mean? Because that's gonna reel you in. And we're all about ratings. So anything that's gonna keep the viewer engaged and reeled in, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so, it just tickles me. So sometimes it's like you're just watching and I just get so, I don't know why
Uh,
that just is something that just makes me laugh so much. I'm like, what, y'all went to the uttermost to
right.
find these random people. You're like, do they even live in the neighborhood? Now, one thing I do want to ask you is,
Huh.
just on while we're on this topic, what I never understood is when people say they don't want their face to be shown. However, they'll put the person's name on there. I'm like, I think it's probably uh
I've
just
had
as
that.
bad with your name on there.
No,
I'm
look,
like, that makes no sense. Why would you do that?
right. I'll go up to like a neighborhood, maybe something breaking news has just happened, and I got to find a neighbor. I got to get this story put together, right? I've had some people say, I don't want my face on camera. Well, then I would say, well, ma'am, is it okay if we just use your voice? They would say, sure. Now, a lot of times in that situation, for me at least, what I've experienced, when they don't want their face shown, a lot of times they don't even give me their name. And we'll just
Okay.
say like their nickname or maybe like a neighbor, and it'll just be their voice. But that is interesting for people who don't want their faces to be shown, but they'll give you their name. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. I think people will be able to find you more if you like tell your name, unless they're given a fictitious name. But
Right.
yeah, that's so funny to me. I think my next question I wanted to talk to you about is seeing where you are in your career. Where do you really see yourself within the next 5 or 10 years? And how, not just where do you see yourself, but how do you make those projections for yourself? Because I feel like a lot of times people stay stuck because they don't have a vision, they don't have a plan, and they don't even think that what they're looking to do or what they're dreaming of could be a reality. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so I would like for you to, give us maybe some insight on how you, I guess, what in the world we would call this forecast, what you would like your future, career moves to look like, and how do you
Right.
determine or how do you set yourself up to make sure you're heading in the right path to do that?
So 2 months ago, I would have been like, "Oh, I'm about to be, living in Atlanta, moving to Atlanta." So I interviewed with a new station in Atlanta. We were in some talks, and the number that they offered me was not the was lower than what I'm currently getting paid. And so it just didn't make any sense. And so the particular hiring manager, because currently at the station I'm at now, I report and I fill in anchor. So if one of our anchors goes on vacation or they call out sick, I'm one of the reporters they call, like, hey, can you fill in anchor? Can you anchor this show tonight? Can you anchor this show tomorrow? And so when I was interviewing at this station in Atlanta, I asked the question like, what are the opportunities for me to fill in anchor? And I appreciate the transparency. They said, well, a little bit it'll be a while before you touch that anchor desk. And so, oh, right, okay, just like that.
Okay, then. Yeah.
Um,
Mm-mm.
and with that, and then the money wasn't, it was lower than what I'm getting paid now. It just seemed like a step below, you know what I mean? And which is interesting. The industry is changing so much because the bigger people climb a lot in this industry. That's why you don't see anchors or reporters stay. Like maybe they'll stay in the city or the market, TV market, I would say, for maybe about 2 or 3 years. Then you see them leave. Then you see another, woman in that same that took the same anchor position. And so in this industry, we do a lot of hopping around to different because everybody's trying to get to the biggest city, right? Get to the top.
Right.
Cities are like Atlanta, Houston, LA, New York, DC. Um, those are like the five big cities. So a lot of people are like chasing to get to those five big cities. But I mean, sometimes, and this is real, people just get tired of moving around. And so they'll stay in the current market that they're at. They'll, get promoted in the current and get more money. And so, I mean, the current market that I'm at, I've enjoyed this area. Like, this is a second home to me since I went to college in the area. And I mean, like, it's been a great experience for me in this area. So, when I do leave, the situation will definitely have to be ideal and have to be right. Um, Ideally, I would, it's on my bucket list, right? I say I don't have dreams, I have goals because everything is attainable. Ideally, I would like to do a year in Atlanta, just a year. Let me just cross that off my bucket list. Being
Mm-hmm.
family can actually wake up and see me on TV. And so, and then I love Atlanta. Atlanta is such a beautiful city. That's where I'm from. So ideally Atlanta, and it'll have to be a situation that's ideal and that's, the money has to be right too. Ideally, I would like to be getting paid more than what I'm getting paid now in, doing that. So yes, I would love to just do a year in Atlanta. Let me just cross that off my bucket list. And wow, Good Morning America. I grew up watching Good Morning America. I grew up watching Robin Roberts. And so maybe, Good Morning America. I don't really want to move to New York. I lived in New York for about a year, and it's such a interesting experience, I would say. Like, it's a good city.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of friends at the time that I met in New York City, but moving back there, the winters are very brutal and
Yes.
you don't have friends. It's like miserable. You know what I mean? I'm a Southern girl at heart. So, I mean, Atlanta, if I can get to Atlanta and it'd be like an ideal situation, you know what I mean? That's ideally what I want to do. And then again, I don't think I want to, I don't know. At some point in life, right? I do want kids and I do want a husband. My, and that's something that, you know, is that I'm like prioritizing. Well, not now, I would say not now, but that's something that's in my 10-year plan, right? So ideally
Right.
married by like 35. I'm 26 right now, so that's like 10 years from now. But yeah, I mean, ideally, I would like to live in like a southern city, whether that be Atlanta or just somewhere in the South where I can raise kids, meet a nice man, and stuff like that. But honestly, I just take it day by day. I'm about to start grad school pretty soon. I'm only
Oh,
a journalism professor at some point in life. And so I'm starting grad school in August. So that'll be an experience. And yes, I want to, a professor, that's on my bucket list. So I want to cross that off my bucket list. So to me, life is just about crossing things off my bucket list. And so maybe like
yes.
now I'll be a professor or just when I want like a slower pace of life.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that there is definitely, in my opinion, there needs to be a balance in life. Like it's definitely great to have those, goals that you're reaching for and you're wanting to obtain or attain, but at the same time, really living in the moment. And one of the things that I really have enjoyed just following you is not just you being, of course, in media and all the things, but also your YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
so I remember when you were first starting that and you gave me some tips. I was like, oh, I never thought about that.
Uh-huh.
Just with your credit and all of that. And I thought that was so, number one, impactful and so amazing because we as a people, and when I say not just as far as skin color, but even with your, not a child, of course, you're a whole adult, but you're in your 20s, like you said. And so a lot of times people that's in their 20s, I mean, nowadays it's a little bit different. They just trying to live their best life. You know what I
Right.
mean? They
Hello.
may be thinking about the future when it comes to their finances. Cause and in a career, I was making great money. I was doing all the things, enjoying my best life, traveling and hanging out with friends. And I live it with no regrets. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I do wish is that I had a little bit better with as much money that came through my hands in my 20s, especially when I say not that I was making $1 zillion, but I didn't have any responsibilities. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't married. I didn't have, any children. I did have my own home that I had purchased. I had me a little Civic. I wasn't out here trying to be a big that. I'm like, man, even though I had, and so even with that, I just feel like Mattea. And I mean, I'm thankful that, I did wake up before it was too late, and be like, oh, maybe I need to be doing something a little bit different with my money. And I never forget, I was working a job at one point and I was working for a Fortune 500 company at the time, actually in corporate. And one of the managers, she was like one of the senior directors, and she was a Black woman. And I was having like a one-on-one with her. She was just asking me about where I wanted to go within the company and blah, blah, blah. And I remember her saying to me, Mattia, do you have your 401k set aside? Have you been, making your deposits, and have you been doing are you doing this? Are you doing that? And I was like, uh, you know, because in my mind, I was like, no, I need all my money. That was just my mind. I'm like, I want all my money. And she was like, Mattia, this company is dollar for dollar. You need to make sure you are putting money aside. And it's pre-tax. Like, come on now. But to be honest with you, I had never been educated on that. I had heard of a 401k. I had a whole college degree, but nobody, I just didn't come from a background that, or a family that knew all of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just wasn't exposed to that. And
yeah,
so I just was like, oh, I thought I was doing good because I was making good money. I was responsible with my money. It wasn't like I was out here just buying a bunch of stuff. I was enjoying myself, but I wasn't, I was
yeah.
saving, but I
Uh-huh.
didn't know about all of that. And so I want you to tell me about, tell us, because I know about it, but of course, tell us about your YouTube channel and how you got that going.
Absolutely. And before I get into that, I'll just piggyback on what you just said. So once I started at the station that I'm at currently now, that's when I started doing my 401k, like contributing to my 401k. And so how old was I? Maybe like, let's see, around like 23, 24-ish, 23. Yeah, I think I was around like 23 when I started doing that. And so I'm glad I'm doing that. Um, then let me go to YouTube too. So YouTube, that's one of the things I should have mentioned a part of my like 5 or 10 year plan. Honestly, I want to be big in the YouTube space. 2024. So the media, digital, everything is changing significantly. Even me being a news reporter, we've noticed a difference in ratings compared to like 10 years ago. Compared to like 10 years ago, people are not sitting down and watching TV as much as they did
Right.
10 or 15 years ago. You know what I mean? So we're constantly having to evolve, change the way we do things. Now we're so much more heavily involved in like Instagram, TikTok, where reporters are now, putting their phone up to their face and doing like selfie mode, telling their stories that they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, of course, it's airing on TV, but we're also doing
Right.
a version of the story. And so with that, that's what made me get into YouTube more, especially like people in their 20s. They're not sitting and watching TV like they used to. They're on YouTube, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. And so I said, well, let me get a part of this wave, catch this wave. And so YouTube, I enjoy doing YouTube. I love talking. So I can just sit in front of a camera and just go. And so particularly talking about like credit, credit is so important. And I mean, you can do any and everything when you have good credit. And then, if you have a business, I started my business, my LLC around like 3 years ago. You can get like business credit, business funding, and there's so much money out there for businesses. And the interesting thing that I learned, a lot of banks will give you more money on the business side with your LLC than the personal side. I experienced at 2 banks. They gave me a lot of money on the business side compared to the money they gave me, just for me, myself, and I. They said, oh, no, we're going to give you XYZ for your LLC. I said, really? I was very surprised. So it's very interesting just how all of this, the finance, the banking industry works. Um, so I encourage so many people to start a business, don't limit yourself. There's so much money out there for businesses and for you to just make an impact. And I would say I really became, very just in tune with that about 3 years ago. I did like this mentorship where it taught me about credit, everything like that, and just basically diversifying your income. So I used to do Turo. Turo is basically like the Airbnb for cars, where you rent out your car and a guest can rent it out for how many ever days they want to rent it out. And so that was like a really good experience. I kind of just opened my mind up to just making money outside of my 9 to 5. And so this particular mentorship that I was in, the mentor says to me like having one job is too close to having, or having one income is too close to having zero incomes. And that just literally stuck with me because that's what we're taught in school. Go to school,
Right.
get a job. We're not taught to be self-starters. We're not taught to be, producers. We're more so taught to be more of consumers. And so, I mean, that just really opened up my mind tremendously. Just, it truly opened up my mind. And from that moment forward, I said to myself, like, anything is attainable. This was first when I was in college, back when I was a student at Hampton. So are you familiar with network marketing or network marketing
Mm-hmm.
company?
Oh yeah.
There was like this big network marketing company. They were recruiting a lot of college kids. And so, we're in college, we're like 20, 21 years old, and these college kids, they pull up in Benzes. And so I'm like, like I'd do like a second take, like, what y'all got going on? And so
Exactly.
they get out the car, fly fresh, they got their nice cars, their nice clothes and outfits, their nice suits. And they say, oh, we do network marketing, where basically we sell products and we recruit people. And the more people we have under us, the more money we make. And so I said, what? You know what I mean? That was the first time where my eyes just kind of just opened to so much more, so much is attainable, right? Yeah. And money is just, it changed my mindset about money. So I ended up joining their whole network marketing thing. I didn't do so well in it. I think I only did it maybe for about a month or 2 months, because it was hard for me to recruit people when the product is not working. But I'm really good at recruiting people, even though the product wasn't working. They were very charismatic and very good with their words. Where, I mean, they can sell water to a polar bear. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it out for me. But from that moment forward, that's really, what exposed my mindset to just money and just not limiting income to just one source of income, like, doing more. And so that's kind of how YouTube came in. I just, started sitting in front of the camera, started talking about like credit, different ways to get funding, business funding, personal funding. I mean, I enjoy talking about money, um, which I kind of had to scale back a little bit because something I'm about to say kind of goes against the whole when we're sitting consuming TV and just consuming all of this stuff into our brain, it's not really taught to us just to like, I don't know, like seek more income opportunities. And so I would say I try to like scale back on talking about like credit stuff or money so much because people kind of feel weird or odd about it. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really talking about, I mean, we need money to pay our bills, right? Um,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing YouTube. I really enjoy doing YouTube. I've been doing YouTube for about 3 years now, and it's been a good journey so far. I'm not at the point where I've become monetized. And then again, at the same time, me being monetized, and this is me saying a lot, me being monetized on YouTube, I don't promote my YouTube channel too much on my news. So my Instagram page, that's like a news branded Instagram page, because it would kind of go against like my news station's policy,
Right.
to income somewhere else from me doing media. And so that's why I don't talk about my YouTube channel too much on my social media platforms. Um, I don't talk about a lot of things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my news station, not a lot of people even know I do YouTube because I kind of keep it on a hush hush. Because it's one of those things like, oh, well, why are you doing that? Well, are you a social media influencer now? And so, I mean, the news definitely just kind of like shies away from me being able to do any of that stuff. If I was not in news, I think I would just go full in with me, just go full in social media influencer.
Wow, wow. You know, it's funny because people often say, like, oh, you just need to get you a YouTube channel. Oh, you just need to. And I'm
Mhm.
like, first of all, the people who have all those followers, it took time to get there. So it's not one of those instant. Now, you have some people who do overnight, they are overnight success. But then on the flip side of that, I often beat myself up. I'm not even going to lie. Because probably about, this is well before I had children, was even married. So maybe almost 20 years ago. I never forget because I've always been into makeup and fashion and all that type of stuff. And this lady at my church, I never forget. I can see myself clear as day. We were standing outside of church, and she said to me, I really think you need to be like recording yourself doing your makeup and stuff. I think you should really be talking to people about that. And I talked myself right on out of that. First of all, YouTube, I don't even think was a thing. It's when Facebook was only for college students. It wasn't even for the general public.
Mhm.
And so I was saying to myself, who wants to hear me? Like, I'm not an expert. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Because I just,
It's so soothing.
and thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And I just did not see that.
Mhm.
I often beat myself up because I was like, that was straight up prophetic. Like I probably could be some big celebrity at this point. I mean, God knows what we needed,
Just
and all that. But I'm like,
wait.
I probably could be some big celebrity at this point if I would have just taken what she said to heart. And so,
And
which is
people blow up on social media, even with me like doing like
Yes.
so many people have reached out to me just about like credit stuff. And I'm like, oh wow, you know what I mean? Almost as if I'm like a credit expert, which I'm not, but it's allowed me to just connect and meet so many people. But you see, like these TikTok girls, the TikTok guys, they blow up and they come like a social media
Yes.
shit. Even like Kevin Samuels. And he was just talking about just, stuff that crazy stuff. Some of it was crazy. I mean, some of it was, but he blew up and gained so many followers, what I mean, just by talking about that stuff. And so it's crazy in the social media world that we live in today, how you can
Yeah,
start monetizing, start selling products just from social media. And then it's in 2024, people don't even need the TV anymore to blow up.
they
They
don't.
they just need their phone and just start recording and they can blow up and make so much money from that, which it's amazing because there's no longer a gatekeeper to making money anymore.
It's so true. It
Yeah.
is so very true. And when I mean for the longest time, because I of course just like what you said, I love talking to. I love,
Yeah.
sharing people's stories. I love telling my own stories. I just love all the things. I just love great conversation. And so I was saying to myself, because probably about 2, 3 years ago, matter of fact, mm, probably right in
Yeah.
the middle of COVID, um, I was like, I'm gonna start me a YouTube channel. And I couldn't quite, when you don't have all the elements and you think it's supposed to be perfect and you want it to be just right, you kind of can sometimes can talk yourself out of it. And this year I said, Mattia, we're not doing that anymore.
Mm,
If it's not perfect, if it's not right, if it's not, perfectly packaged, you're gonna go with this and we're gonna move because this is something that is just needed, even if it's for nobody but my own self. You know what I
mhm.
mean? And so I'm just thankful that I'm now in that space. And just for those people who are listening, so many times we do as individuals hold our own selves back. And I'm so grateful that you're on here, today just to share your story that no matter where you're from, no matter, what you look like, no matter whether you're young, whether you're a minority, whatever the thing is, there is space for you. And somebody is, like they always say, somebody is waiting for you to show up. And so I'm thankful that you're here and sharing your stories to encourage other people. And I think like we talked about earlier, representation is so needed and so necessary because it gives people the opportunity to see or gives them a chance to see that this is something that is obtainable. Because
Mhm.
oftentimes, like you said, if we're not exposed to it or we don't see it, we think that it's for them, whoever
Right.
them is. It's not for us, and it's definitely not for me. You know what I mean? So representation is everything, and I'm so glad to have you. Just be present, not just on this podcast, but just in what you do, because it definitely is encouraging the other young Black females to say, "Oh my gosh, she looks like me. Like I can do this." That's okay.
Hey,
Yeah,
a brand
we
country little town in Georgia.
yes, right.
Oh,
That part. And so I'm just so thankful for that. Of course, I'm a hairstylist, so I'm always going to ask you about, the whole image and hair and all of that. And just
we
do
keep a late.
you
Okay. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Okay. We go keep a lace front on, camera ready. Yes.
so weak. So that's what I was gonna ask you about is like with you being in these places, like I'm showing up as a Black female and I am proud of that, but at the same time, which I am now seeing more textured styling
Yeah.
um in
Well,
news.
it's
Every time I'm like, okay, sis, with the
beautiful.
wash and go.
You'll see sisters now rocking their natural curls, wash and go, as you just mentioned, braids. It's beautiful to see because 12 years ago, we didn't see that on the news. 12 years ago, so the news directors are the people who run the newsrooms. 12 years ago, I've heard news directors saying, hey, like, are you okay? Are you not, like, what's wrong with your hair? You know what I mean? Like, is something going on? Like, could you change back to your regular hair? Because we can't have you going on air. Like, yeah, I've heard stories like this 12, 15 years ago. But now
Wow.
we've evolved so much. The world has evolved so much to the point where you may see Sister Girl with like some straight hair one day. Then the next day she may have on braids, and that's okay. And the news management doesn't question it anymore, just because now managers are going along with the times. It's a beautiful thing to
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
That is a beautiful thing to see. I just get excited. And this sounds, again, I'm always looking at something that is like beyond just what I see. And like just seeing, more curly girls and more textured hair and seeing people who are a little more shapely than
Mhm.
in the past. Just even things like that, where it's not, not just a more fair skin, black person or minority, but all different hues, all different hair textures, all different sizes, just seeing that representation. And it's because I feel like not just a sign of the times, but because we as a people and you all are showing up like this is who I am. We're gonna do this.
Oh,
You know what I
okay.
mean? It takes
Yeah.
you all being present and
Yeah.
using your voice and saying, it's not fair, it's not right.
Mhm.
What can we do to be our authentic selves? And the reality is, I feel like it makes you connect with your audience better when they don't feel like you're this curated, perfectly,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
it's like, yes,
Because me, when I would grow up watching, I grew up watching the news in Atlanta, the local news in Atlanta. And so, I mean, one station was really good, but I would watch some stations and the newscasters would be just very stiff. You know what I mean? And it would just
yes,
like, relax. It's okay. And so
right, right.
like I never want to come off like stiff like that where I don't seem like I'm personable or relatable. And so that's one of the things I think news now is more personable than it was like 20 years ago.
I
Do you know,
agree.
did they seem more stiffer back in the day? Like it's like you didn't know who they
Absolutely.
were. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely you've seen a significant change. And that's what
Hmm.
I love to see all that. Now I do want to ask you, like when you because of course you are considered like a local celebrity because people do recognize you when you're out and about, I'm sure. And so with that being said, do you feel like, and I never forget, let me go back. So when I used to, part of one of the things I did years ago was I used to manage the Mac counter at one of the largest malls in the DMV area. And so we had a lot of people, of course, at the time years ago, of course, Mac was the thing because they represented every hue. Now other brands and companies are starting to expand their range, but then if you were not, Caucasian or very fair, cancel that. Mac
Wow.
was the way to go, right? And so I say all that to say it drew in a lot of the local celebrities. And I always used to love it. It was one lady, I won't mention her name, but she was so sweet. Like she was really, what was her name? Her name was Allison Seymour. She was beautiful.
Oh,
And
alumni.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, uh-huh. That lady, I love her. She is a beautiful spirit. Like her presence was amazing on TV, but she was just as beautiful in person in her the way she carried herself and just the way she interacted with us.
Yeah.
And she showed, of course, just as herself. But now with social media and all the things going on and people always got their phone out, do you feel like when you're out in public that you almost have to not be somebody you're not? Or do you find yourself having to practice a little more, even though you don't seem to be that type of person, but
Uh-huh.
practice so either number one, a little more self-control when you're interacting with others. And also, do you feel as if, you kind of have to go out in the public more incognito because of social media, people are always around
Yeah.
you. What's your thoughts on that? Or
I
what's been
mean,
your experience? Not your thoughts, but what's been your experience with that?
I pull up to the gas station. So normally it's like an older woman who recognizes me from the news. I guess because like maybe people of a certain age, the people my age, they don't watch the news. So it's always like an older
Uh,
woman. And so I at the gas station, she said, "Oh, you're Leandra Head from News 3." I said, "Hey sis, what's up?" She said, "Oh, I didn't know you talk like that." uh-uh. And I said, "Yeah, like I'm not, I don't know. I guess sometimes when I'm in a conversation and I unknowingly have like this news voice, you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm just like the homegirl you see from down the street, and I'm like, "Hey sis, what's up?" And so she was like, "Oh, I was expecting you more professional." And so I was like, "Oh no, no, I'm not on TV. This is just me and you kiki and having a good conversation, right?"
right.
Say most of the time, like I just, be kikiing with people. If they say hey, I say hey back. How you doing? Just engaging with people. There was times like maybe during COVID, if I didn't want to be seen, I would put on, even now, if I don't want to be seen or I'm not feeling good, I'll put on a mask and some sunglasses. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I love it, when viewers come up to me because we can have a good kiki, a good conversation. I can maybe get a story, you know what I mean? They may have something interesting to share. I love it. Yeah.
That's cool. Because I always wondered, of course, there are like breaking stories, but
Mhm,
when they have like these, and I'm not, this could probably be the last question. Then I want to
mhm.
ask you about the news stuff. But
Okay.
I guess
I,
I always am so, huh?
I said I have time. If you want to do more, I have time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like, it's always so funny to me, like, when you see these stories that are so random, and you're saying to, like, we were watching something the other day, and it was like, oh, some girl found a cat or something. And it was like,
Um,
how did this even make it to the news?
right.
Like, just I'm just giving an example of something that has
I,
nothing
I
to
was,
really, and maybe the
I'm not,
cat,
but what station was it?
I can't even remember.
Because there's a local station here. They'll do stories like that, and I just be sitting here like, huh? Wait, like what?
Right.
I get that from? That's anything.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, so are they calling the station saying this? Or is this somebody like, oh, it was their neighbor that just random? I'm like, this
Some
made absolutely no sense.
some people will call up to the station, and that's how us as reporters get a lot of our stories. Either people calling up to the station, I get some stories on Facebook, just literally looking through Facebook comments. I get a lot of stories because
Oh, I believe that.
people spill a lot of tea on Facebook. And
Facts.
even in the news, my ear is always pressed against the glass or to the street. My ear is always to the street. And so Facebook comments, people call up to the station. But if they're doing a story like that, it must have been a slow news day. So on slow news days, when there's like nothing going on, there's no breaking news, no crime, a lot of times, sometimes you may see like softer stories or stories that are like, oh, like stories like you may think twice about. But normally, a lot of people just call up to the station. I mean, and that works. Like, I encourage anyone who's listening, if you all think something is newsworthy, call your local news station. They will pick up and write it down and send it to one of, their reporters. Because reporters, we always don't know what's going on. That's where we get a lot of our stories from. You can either call to the news station or email the news station, and they will take down your information and you can be on the news that night. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, and y'all heard that. If you
Right.
got some juicy that you want to share, or it's
Okay.
maybe something that's great that's going on in the community or
Yeah.
whatever. I didn't know that. I always wondered, like, how you get this information? Like, how do you all know what stories to cover? Wow. Well, go
When
ahead. I'm sorry.
when breaking news happens, a lot of times the police, they won't send out a release or tell us like until like an hour or 2 hours later. So a lot of times during breaking news, we'll have viewers may send me a Facebook message or call up to the station like, hey, why is there so many police, out here? Or why is SWAT out here? Like, what's going on? So they're giving us the tea that we didn't even know. So that's how we get a lot of our stories and get our breaking news, and then we'll
Wow.
call the like, hey, we just got a tip from a viewer, like, what's going on over here? Or we'll send somebody out there to check it out. Like I may go check it out, or a camera pro. Yeah. And then we're the first station on the scene. And then we say, we were here first, and this is what we found out. This is what neighbors are saying. This is the video. Yes, yes. I'm telling you, viewers, like they play a big part in our news because they're the ones feeding us this information.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Wow, that is so interesting. Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I didn't realize it was, I don't want to say that simple, but I didn't realize it was that simple. That's really good. Okay, I have to keep that in my back pocket so I'll
Okay.
know.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, but you know what? I will say we are getting ready to wrap up. This has been such a good conversation. I have
I did.
thoroughly, yes,
Yes.
enjoyed this. I
Yes.
really, really did. If you are just listening or you listen to this podcast, I want you to know that we have, of course, dropped some amazing gems on today, honey. We talked about the credit, we talked about, the career paths of people, setting your intentions, that whole HBCU life, and all the things it brings, representation, showing up as your authentic self, all the things were shared on this podcast. And this may be one of those episodes that you need to go back and listen to again, because oftentimes we hear things, but we don't really hear things. You really want to listen with intent, is what I like to say. And so this may be one of those podcasts that you need to do just to be able to take away a few gems that I think will definitely impact your life. I just want to thank you again for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and sharing all of this information with us. I want to make sure that our people, our listeners, can follow you. And if you would go ahead, and I will share it, of course, in the not in the comments, but in the overview on this podcast, the description, of course. But I want to make sure that people do know how to follow you, where they can follow you, and all your YouTube and all the things, so that they can stay connected.
Yes, absolutely. So you all can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Leandra Head, first name, last name. That is at LeondraHead. That's my first and last name. So I am on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. Please follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you click that subscribe button. On YouTube, my name is Lee Vlogs. So that's LE_vlogs, VLOGS.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so
And
much.
I am just so looking forward to all that you will continue to do and the impact that you're going to make in our community, and just being able to share your story and us being, of course, empowered by that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mattea. I appreciate it. This was beautiful. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Well, you all, thank you again for sharing and listening in to Evolving Perspectives. This wraps up another amazing episode of this podcast. And always remember to like us, share us, download, subscribe, set your notifications, all of the things. And the biggest thing you could do is to make sure that you leave us a review on all of the platforms. You all know that we're available on Apple, on Spotify, on Amazon Music, and all of the other podcasting platforms. So make sure you're not keeping this wonderful information to yourself, but you're sharing it with all your friends and your loved ones. And until next time, always remember to keep evolving. Bye for now.